Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jocelyn Wolf, and I'm a staff attorney with the Santa Cruz County Immigration Project, one of the projects of Community Action Board of Santa Cruz County. You are welcome this evening to our presentation, DACA Updates and Advance Parole webinar. This is a joint presentation for student, staff, and faculty at Cabrillo College, as well as Monterey Peninsula College. I assist people here at the Cabrillo College in Aptos.
Hola, buenas tardes. Quería introducir a mi compañera Jocelyn Wolf. Ella y yo trabajamos para el proyecto de inmigración y estamos haciendo esta presentación conjunto del Colegio Comunitario de Cabrillo y del Peninsula de Monterey. Vamos a hacer una presentación en darles una información nueva o reciente sobre DACA y sobre el permiso para viajar afuera del país, que se conoce como Advance Parole. Mi nombre es Abigail Nieves y también trabajo para el proyecto de inmigración. Yo doy servicios en el Colegio de Monterrey y en la extensión en Marina. Y también quería recordarles que esta presentación la mayoría se va a hacer en inglés. Podemos contestar unas preguntas en español hasta el final. Y si quieren la presentación o escuchar la presentación en español, vamos a hacer una segunda presentación el mayo 8 a las 6 de la tarde. Abajo vamos a poner la registración si quieren también atender la presentación en español. Hi everyone, my name is Abigail Nieves. I am a program specialist, also working with Jocelyn at Community Action Board of Santa Cruz County. And we will be just doing a presentation, and that I provide services at the Monterey Peninsula and at the extension in Marina as well.
One other thing that I just want to mention in English, which Abby shared in Spanish, we will be having this presentation done again Wednesday, May 8th at 6 p.m. That one will have additional bilingual support. I can answer questions in Spanish, and we'll be taking questions at the end of this presentation, but this presentation will be delivered in English. So I want to share the CAB mission. The mission of the Community Action Board of Santa Cruz County is to partner with the community to eliminate poverty and to create social change through advocacy and essential services. Again, the Community Action Board is contracted with these community colleges to provide immigration legal services. So I wanted to get into our agenda for today. We're going to be focusing mostly on advance parole, but I wanted to start by talking a little bit about the DACA litigation because it's been confusing and in the news. I also want to mention criminal bars to DACA. And as I said at the end, we will be happy to take your questions. We're hoping to leave a lot of time for your questions. However, we will not be taking any questions that are case specific, that are specific to your particular situation. We would like you to seek us out for a confidential consultation if you have case specific questions, and we'll be talking to you about how to do that. So starting with the DACA litigation, as you all know, in 2012, the Obama administration issued the DACA memorandum. They decided that they wouldn't deport certain undocumented immigrant youth who came to the United States as children. Under a directive from the Department of Homeland Security, these youth may be granted a type of temporary permission to stay in the United States called deferred action. What happened next was a lot of lawsuits, especially when the Trump administration began in 2017. Those lawsuits mostly proved unsuccessful, and DACA still exists. However, the cases that are still continuing are from this set of cases, Texas versus the United States. So after the failure of the Trump administration to just end DACA, on May 1st, 2018, 7 states led by Texas filed a lawsuit asking the federal court to declare the 2012 DACA memorandum unlawful. There was a decision in that case in 2021 Judge Hainan of Texas ruled that the 2012 memo was unlawful. He said the 2012 memo should not stand anymore, and there's now an injunction prohibiting the government's continued administration of DACA. He stayed that injunction, meaning he let it stand, but sort of wait while this litigation is pending. So there's an appeal happening from this decision and continued appeals after. Basically, what you need to know is that the ruling permits DACA renewals, but does not allow for the processing of new applications. So, as I said, there was an appeal in September of 2021. The government and interveners, so other people who are interested in the existence of the DACA memorandum, like people with DACA, appealed the ruling to the United States Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit. One of the reasons that Judge Hainan ruled the DACA memorandum unlawful was the process that the government went through to create it. So at the same time, basically, the United States government was trying to sort of backfill the procedure that they did that wasn't perfectly correct. So they issued a DACA final rule on August 30th, 2022 to try to fix this problem that Judge Hainan saw and ruled on and said this was unlawful. So that's what the DACA final rule was. Okay. So the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeal issued a decision on October 5th, 2022. It agreed with Judge Hainan. DACA was unlawful as it existed under the 2012 memo. However, that wasn't the whole of their ruling. They also said, what about this new DACA final rule? Is that also unlawful? It's different. Judge Hainan, we would like you to investigate whether it is different enough so that DACA can now stand. September 23rd, 2023, the most recent thing that has happened in this case that you may have heard about last year, Judge Hainan said there's no real difference between the DACA rule and the 2012 memo. It's still unlawful. Okay. Back to the Fifth Circuit. We're currently in this appeal space again, saying that the final rule is also unlawful. Now that decision is being appealed to the Fifth Circuit. That's what's happening as we are here early 2024. There have been no changes since 2021. Renewals are being processed. The initial applications are being held and not processed. There is a chance that things could change. There's a chance that they could remove the stay on the DACA renewals in their decision, the Fifth Circuit, meaning that DACA renewals and advance parole could stop. This is all speculative. We don't know what's going to happen. We're not sure. Legal experts believe that this case will be appealed from the Fifth Circuit, whatever the decision is. It will likely be that DACA is unlawful. We haven't had the decision yet. Whatever the decision is, it's likely to be appealed to the Supreme Court of the United States in the next few years. This information is based on typical procedures, but we don't have a crystal ball. We can't tell you exactly what's going to happen. It seems likely, though, that DACA will end. And so anyone with DACA, we would like to talk to you about other options for you that are a more permanent status, just because at every level, Judge Hainan and the Fifth Circuit have said, so far, DACA is unlawful. We'll let it stay for now. But that doesn't mean that in the future it will still exist. There's a strong hint that it will not. Based on some research I did, it looks like the case could be heard in the 24 to 25 term for the Supreme Court, but that's going to depend on when the Fifth Circuit makes its decision. We don't have a decision from them yet. They've just taken briefing earlier this year. So that's the status of the DACA litigation. Okay, I wanted you to have some takeaways. If you have DACA, please continue to timely renew both your DACA and work authorization. Timely meaning 4 to 5 months before expiration. USCIS has told us that is 120 to 150 days early. If your DACA has already expired, renewals are possible before 1 year has passed. If it's been more than 1 year, USCIS will treat the request as an initial request and will accept the request but will not adjudicate it. There are currently no changes to advance parole. We again encourage you to request screening for other available forms of immigration relief. If you do not have DACA, first-time applications for DACA continue to be accepted, but Judge Hayden's order prevents the government from processing them. SCIP is not filing first-time applications currently. If your DACA has been expired for more than 1 year, it is treated as a first-time application. Okay, I know that that was a lot. I know that it was probably confusing. I'm happy to take questions about it at the end. We're going to move forward to criminal bars to DACA. This is a really important area because you can lose DACA. And that's something that I want you all to be aware of. It, in addition to it not being a permanent status, it is also at risk depending on the choices that you make. In this case, we're talking about criminal activities. I know that this slide looks scary. I did that on purpose. I want you to really take into account how your actions could affect your future when you're thinking about this. So what are the rules about this? DACA eligibility rules bar any applicant with 1 felony conviction, 1 serious misdemeanor, or 3 or more misdemeanor convictions from having DACA. So what does that mean? A felony is any offense punishable by imprisonment for more than 1 year. What is a significant misdemeanor? A significant misdemeanor is an offense that is punishable by more than 5 days but less than 1 year in jail, related to domestic violence, sexual abuse, possession of a firearm, drug sales, burglary, driving under the influence, or any other misdemeanor with a jail sentence exceeding 90 days. I want to pause here and say that in our office, we are most used to seeing people having issues with DACA because of their driving under the influence or because of issues related to domestic violence. Be very, very careful. I understand that, especially in college, the culture is to party, the culture is to have a good time. If you have DACA, there are risks that you are subject to that other students and your peers may not be. This is a warning because we see this happening to people. Once you lose DACA, there's not a way to get it back. A misdemeanor that's not a significant misdemeanor, it's punishable by more than 5 days, but less than 1 year. Here's some tips that I want you to know about if you've been arrested, and this is critical. First, seek a confidential consultation with a licensed and experienced immigration attorney right away. Second, do not plead guilty to any offense without first understanding the immigration consequences. There are some crimes where it would make sense if you are a US citizen to take the plea, and it would not make sense if you are not a US citizen or if you are not a lawful permanent resident to take that plea. While you may be unable to receive a new grant of DACA until the criminal court case has been resolved, don't wait too long to renew, as all renewals must be filed within 1 year of expiration. Finally, always disclose every arrest charge and conviction to USCIS where appropriate. As I said before, certain criminal convictions bar eligibility to DACA. One of those is a DUI. There is a way on your first DUI to have it changed from a DUI to a wet reckless. That takes time. If that's something that you need to have happen, you're working with a criminal attorney to do, you need to be worried about that 1 year expiration time. I just want to highlight that for you guys. Those are the slides that I wanted to present to you. Now I'm going to turn it over to Abby to talk about advance parole.
All right. Hello, everyone. I think a lot of you might be wondering what exactly is an advance parole and why we're talking about it. The simplest term is that it is a permit that allows you to enter the United States. And if you have DACA, there are three reasons on how you can try to travel outside of the United States. One of it is through employment, education, or what immigration calls humanitarian. Next slide. Now, even though I said that advance parole is a permission to enter the United States, we cannot guarantee that you're actually going to be allowed to enter the United States. And I know it sounds very counterintuitive and it doesn't make sense, but essentially, the only person that has authority to let you in is that officer that is letting you into the country, whether you're coming in by an airport at the port of entry, or if you are going in through a car, whoever officer you're handing your documents, that is the only person who has the authority to let you inside. And there's just a few things to consider as what are reasons why that officer might not let you in or why you should. Um, it is always just up to them. And because it's up to them, we really want to make sure things that you keep in mind are your criminal history or if you are inadmissible. Those are some reasons why the officer might not let you in. Next slide. We think that despite that risk, we do think that there is a lot of advantages in getting advance parole and why we think it's really important. I think obviously the most obvious one is that you actually have the opportunity to travel abroad. A lot of you might have not thought that you can, but you couldn't have this opportunity, but there is. As a lot of you guys entered as children without any sort of paperwork, what we call entry without inspection or abbreviation EWI, you didn't present any sort of document. Coming in with this advanced parole almost resolves that in a way because you are legally being allowed entry. And so that previous entry in a way is forgotten. And this legal entry, it could allow a lot of you guys to have an easier and a faster pathway to becoming a permanent resident. If you are married to a US citizen or you have a US citizen child over the age of 21, coming in with this advanced parole will make a big difference when you're trying to adjust for a permanent residency. Next slide. Like I mentioned, even though these are a really great opportunity, there are things that we think that you all should consider and keep in mind before you try to apply for advanced parole. And these are things that as your caseworker, whether it's me or Jocelyn, things that we would want to know in full details of what's going on in your history to see if it's safe enough for you to travel. As Jocelyn said, criminal history is really, really important for us, for you to disclose to us. We want to know of any arrest, any sort of interaction you've had with police officers, with any law enforcement officer, whether you were actually convicted, whether you were just charged, if it was misdemeanor, felony, any arrest warrants, unpaid fines, citations. Those are things that we'd want to look at, especially because if those things, those criminal incidents are considered what we say is a crime involving moral turpitude. It's a quick abbreviation, CIMT, or incidents where you could have been arrested for drugs, DUI, domestic violence. Those are things that we know can put you at risk for deportation. Or if you are trying to enter, they could be reasons why they won't let you come in. If you had previously been in any sort of removal or deportation proceedings, any executive removal deportations, those are, or you have just an order that you are asking to be presented to court for any of those are the reasons that immigration could stop you from coming in. And if you have any of these, we would most likely not recommend for you to travel. But it just depends on your circumstance. It's always good to double check with an attorney. And despite all the good things, it is a financial situation. You do have to consider what you have to pay for the fee, pay costs for travel, and then costs for staying over there. So you do also want to just keep in mind if you guys can afford this as well. You go to the next slide. And now we wanted to give you just a very quick overview or just of the requirements of what we need to do. So the form that we fill out, it's called an I-131. It's an application to travel outside of the United States. The fee has increased start on April 1st. The prices went up to $630. It is essential for you to have a passport from your country of origin. So wherever you were born, you need a passport from that country. You need 2 style passport pictures. We do always encourage you to have your work permit and your DACA approval renewed recently, or at least whenever you're planning to travel. We want to make sure that it won't expire at least within 6 months from your travel date. Again, it's just for your safety, things that we want to make sure that it doesn't expire. Could be another reason why that officer won't let you in. You also have to write what we call a declaration. It's essentially an essay, 1 to 2 pages, where you are explaining yourself all the different reasons of why you're trying to travel. Like I said, whether it's humanitarian, education, or work, you have about a page to 2 pages to write why is it important for you to travel based on either of those reasons. And like I said, always keep in mind that there is travel cost and there isn't an estimate of how much it will cost. You have to gauge for yourself on how much you're willing to spend to go on this trip as well. Next slide. What I really want to focus on is the humanitarian evidence, what you need for a humanitarian reason. It is the most common one we see. And usually most people go see it to go see immediate family. And immigration considers immediate family only as parents or siblings. What immigration sees as secondary family or not as close are grandparents. And then the further you go out into your aunts, your uncles, your cousins, it gets harder for immigration to approve the reason for you to leave. Again, it doesn't mean that you can't try. It's just that it's more possible that you'll get approved the closer or immediate family they are to you. And whoever you decide to see, for example, if you're trying to go see your grandparents from your father's side, we need to show relationship on how they are your grandparents. And the easiest way to show it is through birth certificate. And we would need a birth certificate from you. We would need a birth certificate from your father. If we can, a birth certificate from your father's mom, and a birth certificate for the grandparents, just so that we can see as it follows through in each birth certificate that all the names match to everyone. And then you have to have a reason as to why you're trying to visit those specific people. Like I mentioned, if you're going to go see your parents, you need a letter showing why you need to go see them. So for grandparents, we usually recommend getting a doctor's letter. So since they tend to be older, they tend to have a lot of medical issues, a lot of health issues. And it's really easy for the doctor to highlight all of the different health issues that they have. And in the declaration, you would match it to what the doctor is saying to emphasize your reason. For example, your grandfather has diabetes and it's out of control, and their blood sugar and is too high, and all of these other issues are causing other related issues to it. And so then in the letter, your declaration, you would just talk about how you are a great cook and you are studying health and you are the reason that you're going to travel to Mexico to see your grandparent is to help show him how to cook healthier meals, how you're going to be taking your grandfather to all of their appointments until their all of their health is more regulated at a more stable condition to provide for them to have a better life and us on a more healthier lifestyle as well. Other reasons, and I know that they're really unfortunate and sad, but you can go see other relatives who have recently passed away, so you would want to get death certificate. If you want to go visit their graves, the gravesite where they were buried, say your final goodbyes. Other reasons that people have used a humanitarian is for personal reasons. For example, getting some sort of dental needs. We all know that it's really, really expensive here, and it could be a lot more affordable to get the appointments or the services that you need abroad, like in Mexico. So getting your dental work done in Mexico could be a great reason to try to use Advance Parole. You would need a letter from your dentist here and trying to have a dentist in Mexico showing that it isn't something that you need for yourself. But at the end of the day, we just encourage you to be as creative as possible. If you can come up with a reason and you can prove that reason, you could just apply for it and see if it gets approved or not. There is never a guarantee in what is a good enough reason or what isn't. It is just the things that we see most common, but just because your reason isn't common doesn't mean you can't get in. And very briefly, reasons for work could be that your work is asking you to go do a certain job site somewhere abroad, for training, for a conference, do your work. For school, since you guys are right now in community college, maybe some of you guys are planning to transfer to university. There are so many different programs of international studies, different internships, different classes that you can take abroad. Any of those that you would like to try to enlist, those are other reasons that you could try to apply for Advance Parole as well. And can you go to the next slide? As I mentioned, you have to have a passport to try to get it. Again, this is being very, very specific because it is what most of our clients need. So if you are from Mexico, we do understand that it's almost impossible to get an appointment with the Mexican consulate. The closest one obviously would be San Jose, and we put up the phone number. What we recommend, there is no guarantee that this will work, but we recommend trying to call on Tuesdays at 11 a.m. Supposedly, that is when some slots are open for appointments. And we do know that some of our clients have had success just driving out to Fresno or Sacramento. Getting those appointments out there has worked for them in trying to obtain their passport. We want to make sure and remind everyone that when you're traveling, you want to make sure that you have 6 months before your passport expires, in between the time that you're trying to travel. You have to have dates in mind of when you want to travel. We can't just say that we will determine when you approve it, I will decide when. When you're filling out the forms, you have to say in approximately 6 months, I want to try to travel and be out for a month, for a week, for 2 months. You just have to decide on how much time you want to be outside. And we do ask to add a few extra days in between as well. If you are for another country, you might have to drive out to a different consulate. And just keeping in mind that some of them might be all the way in San Francisco or LA, depending on their country, there might not be a consulate closer than either of those two cities. And can you go to the next slide? I know that I'm giving you guys all a lot of information, but these are just very quick tips that we think are really important for you to keep in mind and for you to know as well, is that it's always more important to ask for more time. This is where I was saying that you want to add a few extra days to your intended travel time because you never know what's going to happen. You don't know if you're going to show up late and miss your flight, if there's delays because of weather, because of different things malfunctioning with the plane. And so you want to make sure that you are entering the country before the expiration date. If you are asking permission to travel for 15 days, we want to make sure that you're trying to enter either on day 13th or day 14th. If for any reason you're coming in on day 16, on day 17, those are another reasons why the officer at the port of entry will not let you in, or you will have a harder time trying to get in, is because your permit only allowed for 15 days and you passed that. So technically by then you don't have a permission to enter the United States, and it will cause you a lot of difficult things, and there is no guarantee that we will be able to help you enter the United States after. So you really, really want to make sure that you're asking for more dates and you're coming in before everything expires. When we submit the application, immigration will send you what's called an approval notice, and that is what it's going to tell you when you're going to come in. You want to make sure that you're carrying all of the original documents of that approval letter with you. That is what you have to present to the officer at the port of entry. And we want to make sure that you're leaving copies everywhere. You want to make sure that you're leaving copies with your family, with siblings, with your attorney. You're having copies of it on your phone, in your email. You want to make sure that if something were to happen where you lose it or it gets stolen, that you have something to present to the officer to let you back in. And as you're coming in or as you're looking at flights, there are things to consider, and what are, quote unquote, what is a safer, easier city to come in versus which ones could give you a harder time. So we think that potentially if you're booking flights and flying, it would be easier for you to come in through maybe San Jose, San Francisco, Los Angeles. And just because there tend to be, these are cities in California where we know politically that where they stand, and they tend to stand on the side of immigrants and helping them, and they shouldn't give you such a hard time versus if you're coming in through Texas, through Arizona. We all know that their policies politically, they tend to side against immigrants, and they could give you a harder time trying to come in. Again, there is no guarantee for any of this. It all just depends on the officer, but these are just safety tips that we think and we hope it could give you an easier time coming in. As you're presenting all of your documents to that office at the port of entry, they could give you what's called a secondary inspection. They might take you to a second room or a second location for further interrogation. It just means that they'll probably just ask you more questions about reasons for travel, how long were you out. They might ask you to show them documents, and this is why we want to have copies of everything, just for you to show them in case they do ask you questions. They might take you to that secondary location. They might not ask you questions, so just let you sit there for a while, and then they'll let you out. And in between all of this, they should be stamping your documents. And this is really, really, really important when you're coming in. You want to make sure that that officer stamps any and all of your documents. This is what is going to show that you were legally allowed to enter the United States. They will either stamp that approval notice, it's called the I-512L. They will either stamp your passport or issue you what's called an I-94. It's an entry permit. And they will just stamp it, and it gives you the date that you're legally coming in. And that's really, really important for if you're trying to file for an immigration benefit in the future. You want to prove that you came in legally, and having that is essential. And trying to get those documents, if you didn't make copies, if you didn't take pictures, it will be a lot harder for you to try to get later on. Can you go to the next slide? like I said, if you look at my pictures, you can see what one of the stamps sort of looks like. So we want to make sure that you're getting that stamp. When you are renewing your DACA, it is essential for you to tell your attorney or the person helping you file that you left with advance parole, since you will have to disclose it again and letting know immigration that you left and came back with advance parole. And we are going to require proof that you came in with those documents. We want to be looking of any of those documents, your passport or the approval notice. When we file the application, it will approximately take between 4 months to about 8 months for you to get approval for you to able to leave the country. If you leave the country before the approval is given, technically that application is lost and it is considered abandoned and you never had permission to enter. Again, if you're leaving without this document, there is no guarantee that you will be able to re-enter the United States. I know that applying for an application that could take 4 to 8 months is a really long time, and there are different circumstances where you would want to leave immediately, maybe within a few days, within like a week. There is a process called emergency advance parole, where if you have a family relative who unfortunately just passed away or is at their deathbed and can die at any moment, someone had an emergency surgery, anything like that. And again, these are just examples for humanitarian. There are a way for you to travel quicker. You have to request what's called an info pass, where instead of mailing out your application and waiting months for them to respond, is that you will make an appointment at the San Jose office, and that same day that you go, you will present all of the documents to the officer. They will tell you that same day if you get approved or denied. And I'm pretty sure you have to leave, I think within like a week of that. So there are ways for you to travel. It is very stressful in obtaining all of the documents and all of the evidence needed, and the cost could be higher since buying flights last minute could be a lot more expensive. But there is a way for you to travel immediately if that's something happens. If not, we really just recommend to just file it normally 4 to 6 months. It's easier on you in getting all the documents, but we never know what could happen. Next question. Next slide. And I will hand it off to Jocelyn.
Thanks, Abby. So we want to let you know that we are here to assist you. You can book an appointment through Find Your Ally if you are a member of community college, either student, staff, or faculty. Also, this is the handy information for our immigration project ambassador. If you're having any issues booking an appointment or you have questions about the appointment process, her contact information is on the screen. She's very friendly. She also wants us to remind you that there do exist scholarships for both DACA renewals and advance parole applications. We are on to the questions portion of this presentation. I'm going to stop sharing the screen and I'm also going to stop recording. This is a reminder that we will not answer case-specific questions at this time.